So, good morning, everybody. Take a seat. And I'd like to welcome you to our breakout session from legacy to microservices. My colleagues Torben, specialist solution architect middleware, and Serge, sales specialist architect middleware, and I, manager IT and lead of innovation lab, will give you in the next 45 minutes some insights and lessons learned we had during our first OpenShift project within Miles & More. And let us have a quick look at our agenda. First of all, I will give you a small introduction about Miles & More in general and what our starting point was in 2014. After that, I will tell you something more about the project and the scope, the setup, and some key facts. And then I will hand over to Torben, who will talk to you about the technical and architectural challenges we had during our project. And in addition to that, Serge will tell you about the recommended way Red Hat would prefer when you start such a project. And as a project leader of the project, can tell you we don't have done this. And at the end, I will share with you some lessons learned from the Miles & More perspective and give you an outlook of the actual Miles & More IT architecture and some short outlook what we are planning with Red Hat products in the next few months. So, Miles & More. We are the largest frequent flyer program and award program in Europe, and we are expert in successful customer loyalty for now more than 20 years. And every month, 150,000 new members register for the program. This is 4 times the capacity of the legendary Fenway Park right here in Boston. And besides that, we are a frequent flyer program. We have more than 300 non-air partners, sophisticated brands in all areas of life, such as shopping and lifestyle, for example, Tommy Hilfiger or Lacoste, and telecommunication and electronics, Apple or Telecom. And we all have the whole travel chain for hotels, Hilton, Marriott, car rentals, Sixt and Avis. And though we can offer our members an exclusive world of selected premium products and services. And besides our frequent flyer program, our non-air partners, we also have a complete retail offering with online and offline shops. And we ship every 2 minutes a brand product. For example, Rimowa suitcases, iPhones, and from this year, you can buy a Whirlpool built from a A320 jet engine. And we are also the biggest co-branded MasterCard credit card portfolio in Europe with round about 800,000 credit cards. And all over the world, we issue more than 1.4 million Miles & More credit cards. And last but not least, our biggest area for earning and redeeming miles is the airline sector. Every hour, members earn 5.9 million miles, and 84% of them will be redeemed for upgrades or free flights. So, as I told you, Miles & More has over 20 years experience. Miles & More was commenced in 1993 as a frequent flyer program within Lufthansa, and developed into the leading frequent flyer program in Europe with a strong brand value and contact to a premium target group. But as the leading frequent flyer program in Europe, growth was very limited in the loyalty sector because the airline industry has not so much growth, actually. And besides that, during a portfolio analysis within the Lufthansa, loyalty was defined as a strategic area for growth. And though the management decided to carve out Miles & More into a joint venture with its yet own legal entities, the non-air part called Miles & More International, where the whole non-air partnerships and the marketing was together, and the retail divisions called the World Shop into the new Miles & More company. And the management also give us some strategic goals and targets, though we have to evolve from a frequent flyer program for the Lufthansa Airlines into a multi-partner program. And so we have to expand our non-air partner world. And there the focus was on premium brands out of the Fortune 100 list. And the second goal was to become a loyalty and omni-channel marketing expert who can target an individual member with a relevant offer, not only marketing emails or newsletters, so that you can receive the offer you want and you receive the offer you want. And nevertheless, all companies have the goal to be innovative and very fast in time to market. And as you can see, all these goals are only achievable if you have a fast, reliable, and homogeneous and scalable system landscape with lean processes. So next slide and drink. So, what were the IT challenges after the carve-out? One restraint for the carve-out was that we have to transfer all IT systems into the new Miles & More. So we pulled out the frequent flyer systems from the Lufthansa, moved them to the Miles & More, and transfer the retail systems into the new Miles & More, and also the non-air systems. So we had, I think, 3 or 4 data warehouses, 3 customer relationship tools, so very good environment to start. And also that Lufthansa was our main partner, the status program, though the rules when you become a frequent flyer or a Hunt Circle member and which benefits you are given with it remain in the Lufthansa. So we have many umbilical cords into the Lufthansa group, plus our integration with all other IT systems. We had many technical and operational interfaces, heterogeneous platforms, and heavy-duty and complex systems. And I think most of you know that when you have this IT architecture, you can't fulfill your strategic goals, that you have to be innovative, fast time to market, and evolve very fast. But what's next? Though we had many discussions and had at the end 3 options how we can go with this architecture. The first option was we do nothing, and those were the low risk and the maximize of continuity option. But as I told you, the strategic goals are not able to do with this strategy. We have to change for the goals. The second option was everything new from scratch, but this is a high-risk option with huge invests and a long time to market. And so we decided for a 2-speed IT approach, don't fall down, where we can guarantee continuity and maximize agility, though we manage our complex systems and guarantee performance and stability, and we start rebuilding or building new systems in a microservice architecture, so we can ensure a suitable time to market and support our innovations. And with this microservice approach, we also can encapsulate main functions from our legacy systems and make them available with microservice for our customers and partners. So this was Miles & More in general and our starting point in 2014. And now I will give you some overview about our first project, where we came from, or what we start with, to build the OpenShift platform and the microservices. We thought it would be a good idea to rebuild our main non-air partner system for all our non-air partners. Which was the interface, the service bus, the reporting tool, the rules engine. It was everything what a non-air partner need from Miles & More. And as I told you before, we had many interfaces through the Lufthansa, back into our systems, and so on. So we started with these legacy applications figured out the functions we had, and then we thought, okay, how can we modularize this system? And we then had, at the end of the pre-project, this module. So we had an enterprise service bus, which we built with JBoss Fuse and ActiveMQ. We identified a database cluster, which we integrated in our main data warehouse. We had the non-air core application, we call, so everything special for our non-air partnerships. We had our data warehouses, where we come down the reports and other export services. We need a search engine to find the transactions. And we also build a small IDM module for access our services and for partner and user administration. And yeah. And at the beginning of the project, our implementation partner told us, we can do this with OpenShift and microservices. It's really cool stuff. But to be honest, I had no clue what OpenShift was or Kubernetes. We had a little bit of knowledge pertaining Docker and microservices, as everybody in the world has. But they told us, yeah, microservices are very cool. They are scalable, reusable, easy to handle, scalable, and everything is really cool stuff. So after RFP phase, we decided to go with our implementation partner on OpenShift and microservices. And I can tell you, and I'm very proud of that I was the technical project leader, and I'm also very proud that the core team of the project is also here in the room, that we managed to get the project in time and in budget. And here are some key facts about the project. We had around about 50 involved project members, from the Miles & More management down to the core team, and the test management. The implementation project schedule was around about 8 months for the whole system. We have rebuilt more than 50 microservices in that time. We installed and configured during the project 25 virtual servers, and we bought a little bit over budget, but it was caused by a change request from the business department. From all 300 partners, more than 90% are already migrated to the new system, and the rest of them will be migrated by the end of the year. And now I will hand over to Torben, but Red Hat came into the project when Miles & More was considering stopping the whole project, rolling back the whole cool stuff, and started completely new. And I can tell you, when this was, I was really, really pissed off because I was a technical project leader. To give you a small example, the legacy application was running on 2 servers. At the beginning of the project, with our implementation partner and Red Hat, we decided to have 3 virtual servers. And then we started our first test phase, and nothing was running. Everything was running out of storage, and so on. And then we had a call with Red Hat and our implementation partner, and they told us, yeah, we need 10 servers. So we have to increase from 2 servers to 10 servers. And then it's running? Maybe. And then I told them, okay, you can go to our CTO and tell them we have to rebuild the cool stuff, scalable system, reusable, with now 10 servers instead of 2. Okay. I will give you a try. And now I will hand over to Torben.
Thank you. So, does this work? Can you hear me? Yep. So yeah, what looks like a big friendship has been since the beginning, right? Matthias was always complaining about OpenShift, not working, does not work at all. And I was just thinking, I have seen so many successful OpenShift projects. I have run a few of them myself. And now it should not work for them. So why could that be? So I was about, yeah, there has to be something wrong, terribly wrong. And, but he was going to blame OpenShift for that. And yeah, and was about to cancel this project. So this is, by the way, one slide we have used during our workshop we had, but we came into the project without knowing anything. We were aware of some support tickets which were open, so we had a look at that one. Then we had a few debugging sessions running to just trying to reproduce all the issues. We ran some analysis, and at that point in time, I had a suspect, but he was about to cancel the project. So I had only a single shot left. So be confident what you advise to the customer, because there's only one single chance for that. So what we've seen in the beginning, Matthias mentioned already, we had a system of 3 servers. So everything running like an all-in-one solution with the master services, infrastructure services, and the app nodes. And so from a high-level view, it looks like a good idea, because you're running a high-available setup with masters high available, with a routing layer, which is running on the infrastructure stuff, high available. So looks like a pretty good idea in the beginning. But if you have a look at these numbers and make a guess, these are, each of the virtual machines was running with 2 virtual CPUs and 8 gigabytes of RAM. So at this point in time, this was just the bare minimum requirements for a single master node of OpenShift. But that one was running on top of that. So we're talking about, at that point in time, 21 microservices, all implemented in Java. So if you're in the Java world, you know what that means. And we're talking about unique microservices, so we haven't talked about multiple replicas of that to have some failover or redundancy in your service. And we were also running an integration layer based on some camel routes with JBoss views and the messaging queues using ActiveMQ, which was running in addition to that. And of course, our whole set of infrastructure services of OpenShift, like the registry, the routing layer, logging and metrics was, I think logging was used excessively. We had some containers producing, I think, 30 to 40 gigabytes of log files, right? Is that true, Deepak? So, and we were able to fill up our Docker storage of 100 gigs. So, yeah, and all of that just running on 3 tiny little boxes here. So, didn't really work out. So, what did we do? Make an agitated guess? Yes, we just put in more resources, as Matthias already mentioned. But that's not the point, right? The point is, key here is that we introduced something called separation of concerns. So now we are running 3 master servers, but non-schedulable, so no container is running on these nodes. It's just providing the OpenShift API services, replicating the etcd data store and stuff like that. Then, in addition to that, we're running these infrastructure nodes, providing the routing capabilities of OpenShift, all the logging and metric stuff. You need to have auto scaling and all that kind of things. And we have dedicated worker nodes here. So this is where we scale now. So as more and more services are moved onto the OpenShift platform, we will add more and more of these worker nodes here. And so we have this stable, robust, scalable system we like to have from the beginning, right? So that's basically it. Just putting in more resources would have been too easy. Just keep that separation of concerns in mind. So what we as Red Hat learned, there's first thing here is automation. So when we started reinstalling the whole system, we made heavy use of Ansible. So we put everything in an Ansible playbook. We're able to reinstall or clone, just copy an additional environment because Miles & More are running at the moment 2 dedicated OpenShift clusters, one for development, the second one for production. To be precise, we're running a third one on OpenStack, which is yes, so-called playground for Matthias' innovation lab. But I can really encourage you to really automate every single piece of what you have to do in such a system. At least once it saved our lives, right, Deepak? We screwed up the entire system by doing an upgrade, I think, if I remember correctly. And it would have taken too long to just fix that. We just reinstalled it from scratch, so we were done in an hour or two, something like that, back up and running. So I really encourage you to automate everything. So I've talked to our OpenShift online and dedicated guys, how they operate such a big system, shared system. They told me they are running Ansible playbooks in a container on OpenShift to do some administrative work, like on a recurrent schedule to check for config drifts and stuff like that, and to keep the system as it should be. So that's one point, so automation. Next one, we have already talked about that. I just want to add, we are now going, so we have seen it was a lot of Java microservices there. So we had 4 nodes planned for production. But if you're running builds, and especially if you're talking about Java, you're talking about Maven builds, you could really put heavy contention on these nodes. So do some upfront thinking and try to split that into dedicated build nodes that don't have any impact on your running applications there. Good. Next thing seems obvious as well, right? So you should always know what's happening on your platform. I mentioned that the Docker storage. Trust me, you don't want to run out of Docker storage. That's not fun at all. There are mechanisms and methodologies how to do that. But if you run out of Docker storage, for example, you're not able to start or stop any container anymore. So, and if we're talking about a production environment, that's not what you're going to have there. Next thing relating to monitoring is put some quotas and limits onto your projects. So I have been a developer for a long time, and trust me again, as a developer, you take what you get, and you take everything, right? So, and you never clean up any resources. So think about quotas and limits, and especially if some services go crazy or something like that, they don't crash you an entire node for that. And the third thing is, maybe most of you already know that, with an OpenShift subscription, you also get a subscription for CloudForms, which you can use as a single pane of glass to do some capacity planning and stuff like that. So I really beg for use that one. That's really helpful to get an overall view of what is happening throughout your environment. This one is an important one, at least for us, because we were late in this project. We came when every single decision was already made, right? We couldn't give some advice or build up a trustship, or we just meant firefighting for us. We had to get this thing running. But really, if you don't feel confident to make the correct decisions, reach out to your local SAs. They are there. Oops. They are there, helping you with making the right decisions. If you have some time pressure and say, well, there's not enough time, we have something called Open Innovation Labs. If you have heard of that, it's more like a project setup where you bring your own team, and together with our experts, working closely together to get this thing running. I really encourage you to do that. And last but not least, education. Don't take anything for granted. So we're really talking about a complex system. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, like software-defined networking or storage, and you need different areas of expertise there. So get this mind shift into the heads of your developers, because this will change as well, right? We are talking about different methodologies, but I don't want to stress too much about this point. Serge will now talk you through how you can jumpstart such a project. Thank you, Serge.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, I think for me, one thing you have to ask yourself before you start an OpenShift project is to ask this question: how can I successfully approach this new technology, or this new container platform? Sometimes some customer forgot about that, and I know there are different ways to do that, and Red Hat have some way that I want to share with you. I want to take a step back, and one thing you need to understand before you start OpenShift project is about collaborations, because every project that you want to have that successful is combined to the collaboration. Collaborations, it means because we are talking about many people. We are talking about the operations guys. We are talking about the developer guys. We are talking about also the partner. We are talking about Red Hat, take Red Hat in the field as soon as possible, because OpenShift is maybe cool, it's a very cool tool, but there is some complexity in the architecture, You need to think about networking, you need to think about storage, you need to think about tooling, because at the end of the usage, the developer needs to use that. If there is not acceptance for the developer, you can forget about OpenShift, And let's start with the first phase. I'm calling this phase the smart start. This is the starting point, how to approach a OpenShift project in your organization. In this phase, you need you will spend less time on something like firefighting, Torben already mentioned, and spend more time on discovering, on designing, and also delivering more value for your project. This is a very essential phase of your project. You need to talk each other, different partner, different collaborator in the project. And when you have all these phases, because in the phase one, there is some requirement to build on, there is some assessment to do. You need to understand what is the most important thing I have to summarize so that I can have a successful project like OpenShift, And if you have that, if you have the phase one, you can move on. You can go to this phase two. In the phase two, a groundwork for the developer team, for the operation team, and also for the partner have to be established. Because if you take a look here, the developer is looking forward to use that. You need to make some container adoption for the application development. You need to think about which kind of tool the developer needs to use your environment, And at that moment, please don't forget to involve the Red Hat expert, because in the phase two, there is very, very complicated thing to think about, I can imagine. For example, the storage was a example in the Mice and Small project, yeah, where we make some deep dive about the storage, yeah, and if you are done with the phase 2, yeah, you can move on. You can move on to the phase 3, and the phase 3 for me is about automation, yeah, and roll out on a more stable environment for your organization, yeah. And in this phase, by the Mice and Small, we got 2 environments. We have an environment for the productive stuff, and we also have an environment for the developer stuff, yeah. And for the developer stuff, you need to understand there is some new application, and there is also some legacy application. You need to think about how can I automate all these applications for my environment. And nevertheless, last but not less, every step in these phases needs to be monitoring and also optimizing, because that don't mean that at the phase 3 you are done with the project. Every time you need to take a step back, think what problem I have and what problem I have to achieve, and optimize your automation process. And transparency is also very important in the project. At the beginning, we was not in the project. Yeah, we were not invited to give some idea. We learned in some customer project we already done. And for me, this is the key: collaborations and share the mind we have on the Red Hat. And please involve the Red Hat expert in all these steps. I will hang off to Matthias so that Matthias can talk a little bit about the lessons learned and an outlook about the architecture they have, or they want to have. Oh, sorry.
So thank you, Torben and Serge. And maybe if we would know this before the project, we don't have so much trouble. But at the end, we are good friends now, though. In every bad thing, maybe it's a good thing. So let me share with you some lessons learned from the Miles and More perspective. We had maybe pretty the same as Torben mentioned already. Microservice is not easy. You think of microservice, small project or small process, yeah, easy going. Microservice, I have to find my notes. So, and the microservices are not easy. They can be even complex. And the whole bunch of all microservices is still a complex system, though it's not that you rebuild a legacy complex system in microservice and everything is easy. And then the second thing is you need to know what you want to do before you get started and how you want to do it. This is what Serge told you. You have to do pre-project planning and know how OpenShift works and how your microservice architecture has been built. So we also would recommend a pre-project planning phase from now. And the third point is our implementation partner recommended us to do OpenShift and microservices, but at the beginning of the project it was a little bit of try and error. So they have to learn something about OpenShift and microservices in the first project phase, and we were really not satisfied with the work they have done, and maybe we lost 4 weeks of implementation, but don't worry, because now we are very satisfied with our implementation partner. Deepak is also here from our implementation partner, and so everything is fine now. And don't blame your implementation partner, blame yourself. Also, your staff had to be a little bit of education on OpenShift, on monitoring, how IT Ops is working with OpenShift and microservices, and everything like that. Though, also you should gather some knowledge prior to a project when you do OpenShift and microservices. And also, it's recommended to contract some Red Hat guys also prior to a project, because they can do some system fine-tuning, architecture reviews, some sizing decisions, and give you a little bit more confident in OpenShift and microservice and also automation stuff. So, let me come to my last slide. I will give you a quick overview of the Miles & More architecture. We have 3 main clusters. Right now we have our legacy systems, and we still have many legacy systems, and they are still very complex. But here we have to guarantee performance and stability, because when the main legacy system is down, the whole Lufthansa booking engine is down, though no flight can be booked. And though this is a performant and stable system, and it's good. And on the right side, the second cluster is our campaign and analytics platform built with Adobe. This is the platform we build up parallel to the OpenShift system, where we are now able to do the personalized real-time targeting across all our channels we have, and even the partner channels. And on the right side is what we are talking for the last 40 minutes, I think, is our OpenShift environment, where we have the OpenShift platform, the JBoss Fuse, Red Hat Ansible, and the integration bus also with ActiveMQ, and the KDI service were the non-air service. KDI was the legacy system name. And as you can see, we are now running more than our non-air partner system on the platform. We have the mileage calculation engine, app services, payment services, and one innovative project, the Workshop Discover app, also running on the OpenShift Docker container environment. So we are really, really satisfied with the Red Hat OpenShift platform and building most of our new projects in the microservice way. And what we are planning now with Red Hat actually is on top of these 3 main clusters, we are thinking about the rules engine, because rules are now also in the legacy systems. Some of them are already built up in the KDI systems, and maybe it would be better to have one rule engine. Then we have to, I told you when we'd have this little IDM component in the KDI or the non-air legacy system, we have to migrate to the Red Hat SSO for all our systems. And on top of that, we are thinking about the API gateways rescale to give our partners our APIs in a secure and stable way. And maybe we can do some open API for some developers as well. And as Torben also already told you, that we are running this environment on our sandbox environment at the proof of concept, where we have this API gateway and single sign-on already in place. And yeah, we use this actually only for the innovation lab, and where we build some tools. And yeah, but I think we are going for this in the next few months. So we hope you get some interesting insights and recommendations which can help you for your OpenShift project. And if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask Torben or Serge. I only can answer questions I got prior to this session. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah.
How do you manage your microservices? How do you do the life cycle of the microservices now?
Deepak, is that something you want to answer? Because to be honest, I'm only the SA, so this is the one of the guys who is implementing that.
So, microservices are, okay, we start with Jenkins, where we have our builds there. It's mainly built on the development system, so we have 3 clusters: development, acceptance test, and production. So the microservices are built on development system, then it's tested on development system by the developers, then it moves on to acceptance test, and from there, after the customer gives the acceptance, moves to production.
Sir, ask me about the CI. It's more about the concept. So you have the evolution of your microservices, and you have a catalog of something like this that you can control and manage the life cycle. Okay, this one is working. I have this in the Something like a dashboard or something like this?
We don't have a dashboard, but we have, let's say, some tools we develop internally where we have statuses for each of these microservices. So we integrate this with our monitoring system, and then we see all the statuses there. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any kind of management on top of the OpenShift resources aside from just etcd? So like we have a situation where we have like 2 production clusters that need to be in different data centers, and they're not federated at all for different reasons. So like if we need to deploy a production resource, right, we end up having to use like Ansible to tell it, go grab this YAML config and push it out to both OpenShift clusters. Is there a better way to do that?
So the question is there something additional for managing 2 dedicated clusters? Multiple clusters.
I've got stuff that they build their own dev, and that's great, but now I need to put it onto the UAT cluster.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to type OCX one all and then re-import it to every single cluster manually. Like I'd rather have all that stuff stored somewhere where we can change it and it changes on all the clusters. Is there anything that allows you to do that?
So there's this federation thing going on, which will take still an amount of time. So we use Ansible playbooks for that. So we just ship images from the dev to the production cluster. That's what we do, or they do.
Follow-up question. There's a Kubernetes module for Ansible, right? It doesn't work with OpenShift because it doesn't know about OpenShift resource types. And so I had to kind of go back in and update that and kind of fork a different version that allows you to control OpenShift resources as well. But I looked in the Red Hat stuff. It looks like they're using shell scripts to do it all. Is that the kind of Red Hat recommended way to use like the OC tool to do that stuff? Or would it be smarter to maintain my own module?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I'm using the OC tool myself to build up some demos and to have some sort of scripting. Good question. Maybe file an RFE for that or something like that. Yeah. No, it's Fuse is running as containerized on OpenShift. No, you're running standalone version, right?
I think this is XPath.
XPath, yeah, but that's standalone. Yeah, standalone.
Okay.
Anything else? Thanks for, yeah? Sure.
No, we decided that the partner has to migrate to the new API. So we have no layer that transfer the old API to the new one. We are thinking about this, but we are trying to deal this with our partner that they migrate to the new API, though we don't have to handle the old and the new. But we can clean up some APIs as well.
How do you manage domains in the microservice? Specifically, going from legacy to microservice. How do you ensure that you just weren't creating scaling service?
That's something for you again. So, how you don't get spaghettis out of that?
Well, talk to us. Well, no. The thing is, we had the specs. The specs were really good from Miles and More, of course. So we always adhere to the specs and just follow the specs. There's no spaghetti there. Simple as that. Well, the architecture also has to be done in a way and enforced to all the developers. So it's the job of the architect to properly say if this is a microservice or this is not a microservice. It's as simple as that. It's just that distinction that the architect needs to make.
And if I could add something, maybe it's also a question of how to get your API right. Yeah, so having a good API, that's easy then to implement against. Okay, thank you guys for staying with us. We are around the entire week if you have any additional questions. Thank you.